Hello. Today we have Dr. Craig Waters with us.
Hello.
Dr. Craig Waters is an accomplished scholar, educator, entrepreneur, manager, and economic developer. He came to OSU from the top-ranked entrepreneurship program at Syracuse University in fall of 2011, where he has led a portfolio of educational and community engagement initiatives. His research and community work led to his nomination for an Economic Development Award from Senator Hillary Clinton in 2003 and traveled to Ireland as part of Clinton's trade mission in 2002. A former manager of General Electric and the Syracuse Research Corporation, Dr. Waters has an extensive experience in project management and contracts administration. Dr. Waters holds a PhD from Syracuse University. His dissertation examined the impact of infrastructure on economic development in rural areas. And last but not least, Dr. Waters is our amazing advisor for the OSU Debate Club. And as for our guest student, we have Patience Alifo. Patience is an international agriculture graduate student here at OSU, a graduate teaching assistant for Dr. Waters, as well as an alumni of Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, or GIMPA. Patience, would you like to say something to the mic?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here today.
Well, yeah, we have two amazing people, and we're here for an hour, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here today.
Well, yeah, we have two amazing people, and we're here for an hour, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff. But let me start this off with Dr. Waters. How are you vibing this week? How are you feeling this week?
Oh, well, it's close to break, so
Close to break?
I'm fine.
Yeah, we had a pretty had some snow days last week, so that was a bit of a artificial vacation, but. Knowing Oklahoma weather, it's gonna be cold last week and it's gonna be freaking burning next week.
Oh yes,
It's gonna be frying like bacon. And so you've been to many places. You've traveled to many countries from South America to Africa to East Asia to all around the world. And my question is, which country had the best weather?
Oh, well, I'll say probably Jamaica.
Okay.
Maybe Peru along the equator. I think that's about, yeah.
Okay. Sunny.
Africa was too hot or too cold.
Africa was too hot or too cold. Okay.
Yeah.
You agree with that? You agree with
Yeah.
you agree with that? You agree with that, Patience?
Yeah, Africa have beautiful weather, but when it's hot, it's really hot. And
Yeah.
when it's cold, but not too cold like here.
Yeah.
Like right now, I'm adjusting to the still water weather, and I'm getting used to it now. And
Okay.
today the weather is so cool. I was telling Dr. Waters, I feel.
Yeah, is Ghana a pretty landlocked place, right? Where you came from, is it really landlocked? Like it wasn't there, you weren't really near the sea or any major sources of water?
Oh, Ghana, there's a major sea there, but where I'm from, I'm not close to the sea, so the weather is pretty.
Okay. And so, Dr. Waters, and you said Peru and Jamaica. What were you doing on those trips to Peru and Jamaica?
Advising on entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Social entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And economic development.
Mm.
So they're both. Where I was in Jamaica was not the resort side. I was in San Antonio, which is really very jungle-like, and there people are very poor. I met some of the communities that were formed from escaped slaves to Jamaica, and some of those communities still keep their African roots, and so that's Jamaica. In Peru, I was in the mountains and in the Amazon, working with indigenous fishermen in northern Peru, and then in the Amazon, I met with a shaman.
That's interesting.
Yeah, who wanted to commercialize his homeopathic medicines.
That was shaman, huh?
Yeah, he was a shaman. Yeah,
Was it? I'm guessing a very different culture.
Yeah, it's different. It's different than I expected.
Do you like feel prepared when you go on these trips to these different countries?
Well, I know what I know,
Right,
But
right.
I'm also aware that I don't know a lot about some culture sometimes. I've learned about their history, and so I try to flow with the flow.
Okay. Was it, do you ever felt like any country was like too dangerous for you, or it was really
Well, where I am now in Ecuador, in Guayaquil, is very dangerous. And while my hosts protect me, they themselves suffer death, murder.
Oh wow.
They are constantly extorted by the drug cartels,
Oh wow.
and so it's very dangerous there. Surprisingly, when I was in Pakistan, I was warned. I had to sign deferments and releases from OSU Insurance about a lot of things. And at one point, they asked me where should they send my body.
Oh my God.
But actually, Pakistan was very, very nice. People were very, very pleasant, and I still have friends from there now. One of my GAs, I hired to be my GA a couple of years ago, but he couldn't get in to the United States because of visa restrictions.
That is wow. That is asking you where you want it. Wow, that's pretty crazy. You know. So I have a question for you, Dr. Waters. So you traveled as part of Clinton's trade mission in 2002 to Ireland, right?
Yes, yes.
And of course, you got to shake Senator Hillary Clinton's hand in 2003. What was that like?
It's like a Star Trek episode
Okay.
where you're in the same room but different dimensions. So yeah, but I traveled with her, and some others, yeah.
And you got to travel with her to the.
Well, she was in the Mercedes ahead of us.
Okay.
We were in the rickety school bus.
And what was the mission for? Like, what were you guys doing?
We were there to talk about our project in Ireland. Ireland had built internet circles, put in the wiring for internet circles in five different areas in Ireland. But the idea of getting people to use them that hadn't used them before was hard. So we were there to work with different organizations to teach how to work with the internet and how it could help them. And so we were there to present that. We had my project in Ireland lasted about a year. And I worked in outside in Dublin, outside of Dublin. I worked in Mid-Ireland, Galway, and all those areas in between. So I got to meet people and talk about the internet, look at their technology, work with universities that I worked with there on doing that.
And then you guys were basically updating their internet systems essentially.
We were teaching people how to use the
teaching them how to
internet.
use.
Yeah,
Okay.
They already were built.
What was the problem with using the internet? Was it just a hesitation to adapt to a new technology?
Because they knew nothing about it. Because when you're dealing with in the rural areas or the impoverished areas in Dublin, they didn't. They had never used it before, and we had to show them that this could help them. When we were there, internet was still sort of new, and the farmers would say, "Why do I need the internet when I can just go to the fence and talk to the people I have to talk to over the fence? Why do I need the internet?" We had to show them how they might use this and make it different. And yeah, there's a big resistance to change. In Dublin, we worked in the neighborhood where Bono from U2 grew up. So very poor, and they were used to doing things a certain way. The internet's one thing. The government went in and knocked down the tenements that Bono lived in and the others, and built these low-level townhouses for mixed income. The idea was to have the poor live with the middle class, live with the rich, and but the poor didn't like this idea. They had grown up expecting certain things, doing certain. For example, a lot of them didn't go to grocery stores. There would be these trucks that came in at night, and would open up the back, and there would be their stores. They'd buy from these trucks, these black market items. So to teach people how to do something different was not always that easy. To tell the kids that Ireland has these wild horses wandering around the neighborhoods, but you can't get drunk and jump on the back of this horse and ride through town, which happened all the time. I saw it. So, yeah, things are different there. Things are very different there. When I was in China, they were paying people to use public toilets because there weren't a lot of toilets, American toilets, where you sit down on them. So people had to be taught how to use that, but people didn't want to do that. They used to using a Turkish toilet, the hole in the floor. So they were paying an incentive fee for people to go in and sit on the toilet and use the toilet and use toilet paper.
You being there helping with the business, and okay, so this is something interesting. So I'm in your social entrepreneurship class, and one of the things you always talk about is ecosystem, right? Entrepreneurial ecosystem, and you're there doing business stuff, helping starting initiatives. And what is something interesting about like the ecosystems of these countries, maybe in like the different continents?
I impress upon them that it's not geographic. The ecosystem can be whatever contributes to their community, to their businesses, to their social status. So for example, when I was working in Jamaica, they make crafts, and a lot of their crafts are bought and sold by Walmart and by Target, and Macy's. So because they are selling to those people and they're being paid, and that money goes back into the ecosystem, they have to be included in the ecosystem also. So there's that. And right now in my international class, I'm because I focus on social entrepreneurship. Many times, it's very easy to slip out of entrepreneurship and into philanthropy, into other things.
Right.
My social entrepreneurship class, my international entrepreneurship class, makes me realize that business management is not entrepreneurship.
Oh, okay.
And if we're doing social entrepreneurship, it's entrepreneurship with a social impact. But entrepreneurship has a very distinct meaning, and we have to very carefully evaluate and reevaluate how I teach entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship and international.
Right. It's a very wide field. It's not just business, right? It's not just management.
It's not. It's mostly. If you're working with innovation, applied innovation, and growth, as the big part of the definition for entrepreneurship, then you have to think how your social projects are entrepreneurial.
Okay.
So that's my take now. So we're working on how they do that, and then to actually introduce these the idea of entrepreneurship into places where entrepreneurship is not part of what they do. So some of the countries I work in are socialist or socialist aligned, communist. They work under a dictator or under a king. So all of the entrepreneurship has got to fall under their culture and rules, but also ours. So
no, that's super cool, because
That's super cool to add up to that. Dr. Waters' that's super cool to add up to that. Dr. Waters' approach on teaching social entrepreneurship ecosystem is very unique. I remember last semester I was in his class, and his teaching on ecosystem really helped me. I had an idea, and I applied for the Lineage Food Innovation Challenge in San Francisco, and he helped my team to restructure our business page, our ecosystem, and we were selected as finalists to present, and that was really amazing. So his approach on teaching social.
Wow. Okay. And that and that's super interesting because entrepreneurship, I guess the term is very associated with capitalism, right? But social entrepreneurship is so much more than that. It's people over profit, right?
Yeah, so,
And so-
supposedly, but no, it's hard for people to escape their
Profit-
nature,
profit side,
their
right, yeah.
nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's always and there is no perfect socialism. There is no perfect communism.
Mm-hmm.
There is no completely just capitalism right now. The
Mm-hmm.
ideas are out there, but profit comes from some sort of exploitation, some sort of holding back from the workers, and so there can be compassionate capitalism, but still capitalism is capitalism. Socialism has picked up socialism and communism have picked up traits of capitalism. So there's a
okay.
purely socialist country.
Okay. Wait. So you're saying that profit derives from exploitation of workers.
Yeah.
Would you say that profit mainly comes from that, or mainly comes from efficient value generation across like a big
all
system?
that would mean a better profit, but I think for people to actually receive the profit is hard. If workers received all what they
okay.
made,
You're talking about distribution of profit across the company.
yeah.
Okay.
And right now, if workers received everything that they worked and earned, there'd be no profit left over to give out.
Okay.
So part of the strategy of entrepreneurship is how do you give back to the workers,
Right.
but also hold enough to use profit's important for growth and
Right.
and R&D and all, but it also means that the workers don't get all that they
Right. You want to make it more fair for the workers as opposed to
and
just
and that's a lot of
right.
a lot of
And what is and how do you think? What are some strategies for a company that can help push towards more equality and profit?
I've seen employees own part of the company,
Right.
so part of that profit that goes back to the owners and shareholders goes back to them. So I've seen that happen. Also, just fair wages, good workplace practices, fairness. We are ready. We know here how to work, make money, and not scream about exploitation because we have enough.
Right.
But when you go to some of the other countries, they don't make a lot, and so what's held back, they really feel it really hurts. So I see that like in Africa and
Right.
Southeast Asia.
And do you think theoretically, as the developing countries become developed countries, this will basically go away? And,
Well, I don't know if they're developing like that. I think development is more about technology, infrastructure.
Okay.
I don't see a lot of developing countries changing their social order.
Okay. My thought was like, really these sort of inequalities, or inequality in human treatment really comes from not having enough resources to go around, I suppose. But once you have the infrastructure established and you have efficient resource, transportation across, in the entire country, essentially, then, these sort of corruptions will go away.
Yeah, but it also depend on the owners, shareholders,
Okay.
How they distribute these resources and receive from them. Not every manager in business is moral.
Right. Okay.
They have to work within the ethics because that's a law.
Right. Okay.
Most times, but sometimes the morals behind entrepreneurship are
Right.
lost.
It's going
profit.
beyond resources, around the culture side of maybe.
Yeah, and the the culture also.
And if I may ask, like which country you've been to you think has the worst of this and the best of?
Oh, I won't answer that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That is and one of the things. So we talked before, and one of the things you really want to talk about is human nature in these sort of situations.
These are my thoughts. So when colonists came to this new world, many of them were escaping persecution, but they were also escaping a class designation.
Okay.
What you were born into in Europe was what you remained. If you were a blacksmith, you couldn't move out of that. The promise of being something more than you were in the New World
Right.
was really a lot of the impetus to come to the this New World, and for religious reasons, but when you could become what you wanted to be, many times money, class also meant that you got more, and the idea was, well, then how do I make more? How do I keep getting more? How do I keep myself on top? And this is, but human nature is all about self-preservation.
Right.
It's all about taking care of yourself and your family.
Right.
And so this takes over. I see it a big part of capitalism.
Right.
Yeah.
And can you argue maybe that's so this greed aspect, right? The worser aspect of our human nature, greed. Can you argue that it goes away sort of as we get more resources? We have more, or do you think it's some people it's just continuous?
Well, I mean, we have resources, and everyone available to everyone.
Right.
Everyone doesn't make profit from the resources, and so I think that
I kind of mean, like the profit is the resource, right? It's human nature. We survive and we want the resources to survive and do well. But if we as we go towards more having more resource, across our society, then nobody is going to be as greedy. Everyone's not going to be as greedy.
Well, I mean, if people are feeling satisfied, that's one thing.
Right.
But profit is profit.
Right.
And profit is beyond your resources. It's what you make on top of your resources.
Oh.
So if everyone gets what they need, everyone's happy.
Okay.
The idea is,
Profit is the extra.
if you have the extra,
Right.
that goes to the rich.
Oh, okay.
That kind of thing.
Okay, so can you argue that profit is equals sort of greed to a level?
Well, I won't say greed, but I'll just say it's human nature to want
Okay, the ambition.
the most.
The ambition.
Yes,
okay.
to be rewarded for
Right.
what you've done.
And only the extreme aspect of that can be considered greed.
Yeah, we've seen greed. We know what greed is, and we're not always angry at everyone who's rich.
Right.
We're only angry at those that have to exploit to the point that people are no longer getting what they need. People are no longer happy.
Right.
But you realize half of the unhappiness of people is because they aren't able to get what the rich get. So it's not so much satisfying all of that once, just realizing that they would do the same thing if it were them.
This human nature. What differences do you spot between the Western world and maybe, let's say, the communist world or other?
Well, in theory, communism is about no private ownership. Socialism is state ownership. Communism is no private ownership, and that's in the pure state, in the theoretical state. But even under these two frameworks, there are people who exploit and receive profit in a different form, under a different name. They get it by favor, but there is no pure communism or socialism out there.
Right.
There are socialist countries. If you look at Sweden, Sweden makes sure that everyone gets housing and food and medical care, which is why their taxes are so high. But still, there are people who get more than others.
Do you think we'll ever reach a point of having a more pure version of either of these systems?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if it's in our human nature. This is just me talking, but I don't know if it's in our human nature to reach that.
To reach that level.
Yeah. I mean, pure communism would be perfect.
Right, but it's
socialism is on the way. It's sort of the wake-up call to pure.
Right.
Everyone owning everything. Yeah.
Right.
So I've learned that you have to look backwards from communism to socialism to capitalism, and Marxism is really just the philosophy behind this. It's not a real social or political or economic framework. It's an ideology.
It's okay. And so, you know, and so when you're doing entrepreneurial projects in really communist countries, you know, what do the people involved think about these ideas?
Well, they always, you know, I haven't worked in a pure communist country. I've worked in some socialist
Right.
companies.
I guess we don't technically have it.
Yeah, first of all, we're not allowed. You're not allowed to.
Right.
We are not allowed to. But also, when I talk to people, they always think I'm going to teach them how to be rich. You know, Yeah, they have an idea. They want to sell more. They want to reach a market. It's always about kind of how do you make them rich. You know, and what I work with is how do you make your ecosystem better. You know, and yeah, you have an innovation and it's new and it's exciting. That's great. You know, but how do you make that work also for your ecosystem? You know, and that's something. When I'm working in Ecuador now in Guayaquil, and that's a big question with them. You know, I say you all want to do all this great stuff, and that's good. You know, and you have innovative ways to do this. You know, they want to start businesses, they want to do projects, they want to, but it's about how do you make this work for the kids? How do you make this work to reduce violence?
Right.
You know, what are your plans? How do you see this happening? You know, and especially with the change in world order and world funding, I tell them a lot of times to think about what they have within their ecosystem. It won't come from outside anymore. You know, you can, you know, as we change the way we fund other countries, you have to think about what you have inside. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, and I feel like most socialist community, especially in developing countries, most of them lack opportunity. So when they have the opportunity to start something, like their end goal is to have an ends meet, their end goal is to make money so that they can take care of themselves. And so most of them start like businesses or entrepreneurship, looking for opportunity, looking for money, and they forget about the ecosystem. So I feel like what you're doing in Ecuador, especially in Guayaquil, is very, very good. I'm helping them to understand their ecosystem. And also with the Enactors Club that we have on campus, currently Dr. Waters is our advisor for the Enactors Student Club. And what we are doing is teach children how to speak basic English. And he has really identified and also explained the ecosystem to help these young people, these children, to learn how to speak English so that they can also get good opportunity as well. Yeah.
It's called English for Entrepreneurs. So we pick we work the alphabet. We pick an entrepreneurial term from the list of alphabet letters we're working, and then we'll illustrate that. We will teach them to pronounce that. We'll go back and forth with Spanish and English to explain it to them. We'll have Zooms with them.
And so you know, you're not just teaching language; you're also teaching the concepts, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and to add up to the ecosystem, you see, when it comes to business, and this is especially for most entrepreneurs, most of them do not really consider identifying the customer's need and the problem, because it's true that you come up with the solution that the customers need. So when you're able to identify the ecosystem, get to know the key stakeholders who have the right power, who have the contribution power, who have anything that it takes to make the business successful, you realize that you're not just running a business, but you're also meeting the customer's need. And when you're able to do that, you see that the customers will draw close to you, or the customers will buy your product. So identifying the customer's need, defining the problem statement, defining the value proposition will help you become a long-term successful entrepreneur, not just about the money, but also meeting the customer's need.
Yes.
Right, and you know, as long as you meet the customer's need, profit will naturally come in.
Right.
And so it's never looking at the end numbers; it's always looking at what, you know, where your head is at.
Right.
Yes.
That's awesome. So you guys are teaching the kids, you know, the basic language and the basic concepts. You know, what will be like the next step to going beyond that?
Well, just they're more, you know, the alphabet, all the terms under the different letters of the alphabet. The idea is to teach them what. I can't teach them English. I'm not an English teacher, but we can teach them what the terms are, what they mean, how you say them, how to pronounce them, and then with our Zooms, it'll be back and forth a conversation, just so they learn a little bit. It's kind of funny because I don't know any Spanish. So when I go to Ecuador or Peru or Nicaragua or Costa Rica, I can't speak directly to the people. In fact, for a long time, I would take students with me to these, who spoke the language.
Right.
Yeah.
When I was in Mexico, I asked the taxi driver to go to this place, and he just looked at me totally puzzled. And I showed it to him written down. Still no. So finally, I called my student here at OSU, Paul Sanchez, who was from Mexico, and I said, explain to him where I want to go. So I put him on the phone, and the taxi driver said, "Oh, yes, yeah." We took off. We went around the corner. The place was around
there.
the corner.
Yeah. It's so exciting because our last meeting on Wednesday, you see all these kids were gathered.
Yes.
In our Zoom call. And I mean, all the students who were part of the NACTOS class were so excited. And you see the students are ready to learn.
Yeah, and the kids in Ecuador, they were excited. They were dancing, laughing. They made them identify each of them, It was exciting.
So if anyone wants to join the NACTOS Club, you are fully welcome.
Yeah.
We meet bi-weekly on Zoom, and you also contribute to a meaningful project as well. So you can just contact me or Dr. Waters as well.
And we will give the contact information at the end of our podcast. So
Great.
But as well as club QR code. So do the kids, do they come up with like entrepreneur ideas? Do they?
Yeah, the whole idea is to reach out to them. The students have ideas looking at the ecosystem, and they presented them to Guayaquil.
Right.
Then they hear Guayaquil and what's the issue, and then they have to tailor their ideas to meet that ecosystem. Right now, we're working in a different part of Ecuador, Cuenca, and these are working with rural indigenous communities in the Andes, mainly around the city of Cuenca, and the same thing there. We met with my colleague in Cuenca on Tuesday. I think on Tuesday, right? Tuesday. What class?
The social entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That was yesterday where they asked him questions.
Oh, yesterday.
Yeah, I think yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah.
And they learned that what their ideas have to meet in terms of culture, in terms of education. The whole idea of this idea of appropriate technology, how you bring something down to a basic level. We're doing the same thing with the kids in Guayaquil, a basic level, and so everyone can take part in it. But then we will also do what I'm doing in international. So then how do you think about proposing this as a contract? And what are the things you have to understand and deal with? What in some places the profit is very limited, and by federal law, by government law, so you can't go in and just claim this huge profit. What are the business rules you have to abide by? So we'll do that with in social. How do you propose these social projects and contracts? How do you introduce an innovation, hoping for a contract, and how do you propose it so that it meets our needs and our regulations and their needs and their regulations?
What are some of the coolest ideas you've heard from your students or people?
The ideas are really about what's needed there.
Right.
So right now in Guayaquil, it's mainly about safety and education.
Okay.
When you go to Guayaquil, and I've been there on a Saturday morning, the weather's beautiful. There are no kids. There are no kids on the street.
Oh.
Because the drug cartels have actually drafted all of them and are teaching them how to do their work. Either they're mules, or sometimes they're killers. There's a kill club.
Wow. Yeah.
Where the cartels teach the children how to kill and reward them for doing that. So to work with with them about safety. You know, how do you get kids around, to school? So they worked out. The students have proposed safety routes, safety people to make sure they get there. The students also talk about getting the kids away from the communities that I work in, to take them to our farm and teach them farm tools and farm procedures, and hopefully to teach them that there's something else besides what they have to deal with in Guayaquil. The poverty it's a different kind of poverty. You know, I mean, I've ridden past buildings that I thought were abandoned, crumbling and all, and all of a sudden you see people come out of them.
Oh, wow.
With chairs to sit on the sidewalk.
Oh.
You know, so to take kids out of that, you know, to teach, and also to teach people outside of Guayaquil what these people are like, you know, and there's no better way than have them meet the kids, you know. So realize that, you know, everyone inside these areas of Guayaquil, all of Guayaquil isn't like this. There's the northern part. There's I think it's southern. You know, these are the worst areas. So to have them meet students, kids who are from these areas, and realize these are not monsters. They're not murderers. They're not thugs. They're kids.
Right.
Sometimes I wonder, you know, these countries, I'm hearing from you, realize this country is very beautiful. They have good climate.
Yes.
I mean, beautiful people with culture. But, I mean, it's some major problems that are happening there. And sometimes I wonder if the root cause can be solved so that it's not always people go there with solutions to help them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is really causing this problem, and why is that the root cause cannot be solved? Is it because of the government, or, I mean...
Well, I think the government does what it can, but sometimes we know governments. Also, you know, the people I'm working with right now in Ecuador, in the Guayaquil, they're Afro-Ecuadorians. So their culture, their roots are from Africa. The communities were started by escaped slaves from a Spanish slave ship. So they're Afro-Ecuadorian. So they look African, they look black, but a lot of Ecuadorians don't. They look white. So there is a discrimination there, plus in class and all of that. So there's that discrimination. In the indigenous part outside of Cuenca, their roots are Incan, so they don't look like the normal Ecuadorians. They look like Indians, and they dress like Indians. You know, and their language sometimes is not what's spoken. So, and this is also discrimination. Is a big part of what goes on there, and then with class, with money, with education.
So basically, some of the problem are natural cause that need solutions, like what you're doing.
And it's hard to make. You know, we can't do it in this country.
Yeah.
We can't wipe away prejudice and discrimination in this country. So, part of what I'm asking of the people I work with is, so how do you work this into your solution? You can't do away with it. It's not in your power to do away with this sign of discrimination. You know, with the people from Guayaquil, I also say, you know, so you can't escape this drug culture. You can't escape the cartels. So how can your solution work within this? Because there's nothing you can do. You know, it takes way too much to undo the cartels. So now what do? You know, and the thing is, you know, what can you propose to do to work either with them or around them? You know, the last thing you want to do is anger them, because the retribution's hard. You know, and same thing in Mexico. No, you know, drugs are a major problem.
Right.
Drugs are a major problem.
Right.
Crime is a major problem. You know, we don't even hear about organized crime here in the U.S. that much anymore.
Surprisingly, yes.
But when I was growing up, you know, where I grew up in New Jersey was called the center of the Cosa Nostra. You know, everyone was in the mafia. Right. Everyone. My friends had parents. One boy I played with and went to school with, his father was thrown off the end of a pier with cement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the people we live next door to in Long Branch, you know, a mafia. I mean, his name was Diamond. His first name was Diamond Bruno. You know, so mafia was everywhere. So
That's bad, but it sounds kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie.
well, it's cool now that I'm not in it.
Cool name. And okay, so do you think in the long term that the cartel problem will eventually go away in South, or do you think you'll really be there for a while?
I have no way of guessing that.
Right.
Yeah, and even the cartels, I mean, it's hard to be only see them as monsters sometimes because what they're doing is responding entrepreneurially
Right.
to the situation they've been put in.
That's a very intriguing and eye-opening way putting entrepreneurship in a sentence.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
it's
I mean, even in
really-
crime, when you think the crime, you think mafia. I mean, the mafia in many ways was also entrepreneurial,
Right.
and also social entrepreneurship because here were people. Here were people that came to the United States that couldn't get in to business.
Right.
They, there were signs up. We don't deal with
Right.
Italians, or we don't deal with the Irish. And these people found a way to make things work. And unfortunately, it was crime.
Right.
And that type of thing, and also taking advantage of
Right.
what people wanted. I mean, a lot of the crime in the mafia happened during Prohibition, but that didn't stop people from drinking.
Right. 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 And
So-
okay, right. And I'm when you're in a nation with a lot of barriers to entry into business, you have to find illegal ways to enter into that situation. So you get to at
You
least
hope not,
you can
but,
survive.
but
yeah.
you also have to eat now. You can't wait for
Right.
things to
Right.
change.
Right. And I guess the ultimate goal theoretically would be to try to get rid of those barriers of entry or alter in a way that can allow legal entrance into the market.
Well, sometimes
Right.
you think that works, but then that brings up a whole new thing.
Oh, okay.
Like
okay.
drugs.
Okay,
So
right.
To legalize drugs doesn't take away a drug problem.
Right.
To legalize alcohol doesn't take away an alcohol problem.
Right.
So there's a whole. It goes deeper than
Right.
just.
So going from there, another abstract thought. Do you think maybe the way to get rid of those problems is to essentially through education, right? Through getting or maybe some way of implementing willpower into the people to where they can discipline themselves to not do drugs or get into a culture of
Well,
doing-
so I'll just ask. We know what alcohol does.
right,
Can you will yourself not to have a drink?
right,
I don't think so.
Right.
So lots of people, lots of different people's natures, human nature. So I think it sounds easy, but I think it's harder to do to try to tell people to will themselves out of
right.
this, out of their nature.
I suppose I was suggesting altering human nature itself, which is not an easy thing. No,
It's
not
not an
easy.
easy thing.
Right,
We think that's going to happen. We think
Right.
that happens
And-
in church and in prison and in schools, but human nature is human nature.
Especially when they have the strong mindset about something.
Yeah, and also,
Mindset is something that it takes a long time to really change.
I mean, just think pleasure.
Right,
All these things bring some sort of pleasure. How do you will yourself to not want to be pleased,
Right.
to be happy? How do you will yourself not to? And if part of this exploitation is because it also makes you happy,
right.
how do you will yourself out of wanting to be rich, or how do you will yourself out of wanting to be drunk? We try that all the time.
Patience, Dr. Waters, you both are avid churchgoers, right? You go to.
yeah.
And so, do you, Dr. Waters, do you attend church
Yes.
when you're going to the different, on your travel?
No, because I tried to go to because I'm Episcopalian, so I've tried to go to Anglican churches, but it's very different. It's very different, and so I can't. It's hard to blend in. I mean, you need to understand. So when I'm in different countries, I don't. I do visit churches. I just don't go
You gonna
to
let it
church.
ride, okay.
Yeah. When I was in Rome, one of the things that really sort of turned me around was being at the Vatican. And I was at the Vatican for 3 days, and I'm telling you, it turned me around. That's when I realized, that church is also about the history and people, and it was wonderful. It was
beautiful.
Wonderful,
Place.
yeah.
Beautiful place.
But I don't always I almost never go to church in different countries.
And Patience, I'm assuming, did you go to church while you were in Ghana?
Yeah, I go to Christ Embassy, known as the Love Ward.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was part of the youth church as well, and was really exciting.
How's church culture different in Ghana compared to America?
Oh yeah, so in Ghana, we have a lot of different churches, different denominations, and everyone attends the church he or she likes. But in Ghana, many people have to go to church. In Ghana, like this, with the youth church that I'm in, known as Christ Embassy Airport City, we have over 5,000 members that are just young people.
Oh, wow.
And just the main church, that is Love World, our pastor, known as Reverend Dr. Christy Akilome, hosts program, and over 5 billion people connect.
Wow.
Yeah, so church is something that is really, I wouldn't say popular, but people really love to go to church in Africa, especially in Ghana. But here, when I came here and I visited Dr. Waters' church, you realize that you go to church and it's just like 20 or 25 people. Yeah, and the way they pray is different. But that is how they also understand God. So I wouldn't say it's wrong, but yeah, it's totally different. Yeah.
And different from, I grew up Baptist. So Baptist churches are very different from Episcopalian churches. And it was song, and people dressed up, and it was packed. Episcopalian churches, it was, the numbers are lower. The music is different. Also because my Baptist church was almost all black. In fact, when one of my teachers, a white teacher, joined the gospel choir, he was the only white one there, and people said, "What's he doing up there?" So it's all very different. In Episcopalian, plus Episcopalian churches were actually discriminatory. So when I was in Syracuse, there were white Episcopalian churches, and there was a black Episcopalian church. It was all very, very discriminatory. And even now here in Stillwater, when Patience and I and my friend Rashad from school, we're the only black people there in their 2 services. So that's but the people are very nice. I've never felt any kind of discrimination. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, very nice, yeah. When I went there the first time, I wore the OSU orange color jacket, and I was like, "Oh, I love your jacket. It's so beautiful." I was like, "Oh, yeah." So nice. Yeah.
Patience, what do you think about Stillwater?
Oh, that's a good question.
What do you think?
Yeah, when I came here in August, I was trying to adjust to the weather because, like, I had some breakout on my skin. And the humidity here is so high, like my skin became so dry.
Pollen here sucks too in Oklahoma. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if someone told me, but like pollen's, this region is
really
one of the worst like pollen regions in the entire world.
Yeah,
so.
I was in Boston 2023 and my skin was glowing. So I thought when I come here, I'll be the same thing. And it was totally opposite. But now I think my skin has now adjusted to the climate here and it's getting better. Yeah, so yeah. But Stillwater, the people here are so welcoming, are so loving. Like, when I got here, my first week, the students here are so welcoming. When I asked them to show me a place, some of them will even decide to walk me to the place. Yeah, and I met beautiful people, wonderful people like Dr. Waters. Yeah, so welcoming, guiding me, and it's so amazing. And beautiful people like you, Jason, as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love it.
I think like for all foreign students must be just coming to America, and especially this is Oklahoma, right? This is Stillwater, Oklahoma. We're in the middle of Oklahoma. A lot of people don't even know where Oklahoma is, what Oklahoma is. Because I'm adapted here, but before I came to America, I was like America, New York, L.A. And then a little bit of Texas maybe, but for all foreign students, this must be like pretty shocking, right?
Yeah.
So what were some of the
Yeah.
biggest things that you just thought like, wow, this is completely different than how I imagined before you came here?
Yeah. Personally, I'm a very quiet person, reserved person, and I like serene environment, quiet environment. So when I came here, I realized the place was quiet, serene. So that was good for me because I don't like a lot of noisy
Right,
places.
right.
So that was really good for me. And the people here too are really welcoming. I've not seen anything that is like a major shock here so far for me.
Okay.
Yeah, because I feel like Stillwater is a college society. We have different, diverse background. The Indians, the Africans, the Americans, Mexican.
Right.
So you realize a different culture altogether. But just that there's no African black market, just the one at Himalayan, but they don't have a lot of African, So sometimes I miss home food. I try and cook all the time too. So yeah. Pretty much it, yeah. And I have Dr. Waters here too. So sometimes after church, he sends us for a lunch or breakfast and I enjoy some good American food or Italian food. So it's kind of cool, yeah. So, yeah.
Well, aspiring entrepreneurs, if you're listening to this, try to open up a, African food place here in Stillwater.
Right.
Go talk to Patience, go talk to Dr. Waters. Get some, get a menu down. That'd be awesome.
We'll give them good ecosystem.
Yeah, give them
Break
good
down.
ecosystem. Yeah.
When I visited Syracuse, around Syracuse University, a lot of the students from Korea, and especially Korea, have opened restaurants in that area.
Oh, cool.
So I was surprised how many Korean restaurants there were. When I was there were maybe 2 or 3. Now almost every corner had a Korean restaurant being run by students.
Oh, wow. So
That's
cool.
awesome. That's awesome.
So African students.
If you go to bigger cities, there's African food.
Yeah.
Ethiopian food is very hot right now. So yeah, my students here. My one student, Savani, she invited me to dinner. It was delicious Indian food, and I was in India. I've had it, but nothing tasted like what she made.
Oh, wow.
It was just wonderful. She made her own yogurt. She made her own sauces. She made a dosa. It was wonderful.
Oh, sounds amazing. That's a very cool idea of, helping the students here, foreign students here, open up, little, food shops maybe.
Yeah.
That's pretty
That
cool.
would be so cool.
Do we, so Dr. Waters, being here in the Riata Center for Entrepreneurship, which is, OSU's entrepreneurial center, can you tell us a little bit about, what you do? And I know you have a institution called the Global Institution for Entrepreneurship here.
Yeah, so it's not part of the institute. It's not part of the Riata Center. Same name.
Okay.
Because the donor owns an oil company, and it's named Riata.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know that. That's cool.
when I was at the Riata Entrepreneurship Institute downstairs, that was a way to bring students who had ideas to us to get help to form their businesses. But my institute now is different. In fact, what I'm doing now is collecting memberships from different universities with the idea of how do we promote social entrepreneurship, keeping entrepreneurship in mind. How do we move innovations? What are the laws in your country that we have to be aware of? What should you be aware of if you're trying to open something here? Like in socialist countries, you have to have a local partner, and that partner has to have. But you can never own more than 49% of the company. They have to be the majority. So there are things that we should know about introducing new ideas, new innovations, hopefully new businesses to work in other countries. And that's what it is. And then to teach students how to you have a great idea. How do you write a proposal to somebody about this? How do you collect the costs and decide what kind of contract you want? How do you negotiate and what to expect from that contract? How it works. So I always end up teaching a little bit of project management in my classes.
Yeah, this is a question I think I should have asked at the start of the podcast. But what got you into entrepreneurship? What?
Well, I was when I was at Syracuse, I was my degree is in social science. I met Mike Morris, who founded entrepreneurship here at, as we know it now, at OSU, but he was also my chair of entrepreneurship at Syracuse. So I met him at a party, and he said, tell him what I did. So he said, well, this is interesting because I'm trying to start a project in a very poor part of Syracuse. In fact, and the zip code is the poorest zip code in the United States.
Oh.
And we're trying to start something there, and I'm realizing I need a social scientist. So would you be willing to come and work with me? So I did. I joined the entrepreneurship department there. We started an incubator on that side of town. We worked with people. We founded a microcredit union on that side of town. We did lots. And then he taught every summer in South Africa in the townships, shanty towns. And so I went with him there every summer for years. And we taught in the townships. And the townships are the shanty towns built around big cities because under apartheid, blacks were not allowed to be in those cities after sunset and before sunrise, but they all worked in that city. And people came from all over Africa to work in Cape Town or to work in near the airport, to work near Johannesburg, to work near, everywhere.
Right.
So rather than leave that area and go back to their countries, different countries, and come back, they built these shanties. They were really just made of found material, and they just built these shanties around these towns so they had someplace to stay. So some of these towns grew to be 1.5 million people.
Oh, wow. That's very dense.
Oh, yeah.
Very dense.
And again, very poor. Found materials, dirt floors, no electricity, no plumbing, no nothing. And we worked in the townships with different people to start their businesses. Some were, just repairing cars or building safety bars for their windows. One started a computer company because if you had to use a computer in a lot of South Africa, you had to go to a cafe, an internet cafe,
Right.
Because there was no infrastructure. So I worked with him for a long time. So that's how I got into entrepreneurship, and then social entrepreneurship. I was doing anyway, but I didn't call it social entrepreneurship. I worked with women and minority entrepreneurs. I was in my class, and so and rather than just deal with just Black and Hispanic and women, I said there are lots of minorities. So I worked with people who were handicapped. One semester, I worked with Jews. One semester, I worked with people with illnesses. I worked with people with AIDS, because all of these are business owners, but they also have to deal with whatever's wrong with them. I worked with little people. How do you work with someone who's only like 3 feet tall? And we meet them, we talk with them. When I worked with AIDS, I had a guy come in who sort of talked with me and lent ideas. And then we went to a AIDS fundraising dinner. They had one every 2 weeks. And so I took the students there, and the guy that ran the dinner came to me and said, "Why are all the students all like in one little bunch over in the corner?" I said, "I'll go find out." So I went and asked them. They said, "Well, we don't want to get AIDS." And I said, "Well, that's not what this is for." I said, "Who has AIDS here?" And they tried to identify people. I said, No, that's a doctor. No, that's a lawyer. No. You can't tell who has AIDS. I said, and you certainly can't catch it because they put a dish on your plate. So get out and meet people. So they did. So then at the end of the semester, the guy that was in my class stood up. He said, "It's a pleasure to be here. Let me tell you my story." And he said he had gone to a party. He got roofied. He got raped. And soon after, he was diagnosed with full-blown, not just HIV, but AIDS. That's what happened to him. So, and the students were stunned because they'd been around him. We went off dinner and drinks, and they said, so you have no idea. So this is what we're dealing with. So it's not, so this is how we did this thing. So when I got here, Mike was a chair of entrepreneurship here, and Mike wanted me to teach women about entrepreneurship, but we already had somebody teaching women entrepreneurship. He said, well, teach social. I said, well, I don't know anything about social. He says, you do it. You do it all the time. So I formed this class, and that's how I did it. Yeah.
Guys, it's wonderful how we have someone here who have so much experience dealing with just all aspects of humanity. Like that is amazing. Dealing with all kinds of people. I mean, that's not something everyone just gets to do, right? Or experience in their entire life. And so that's very beautiful what you just said there.
Thanks.
And I feel like it's not just about Dr. Waters' teaching. I've been here for maximum, let's say, 6 months, and I've been working with him and how he even deal with his students and even with his workers and even with people. I've been observing and realized that it's not just about him teaching social entrepreneurship, but he lives it. Like he has a respect for everyone, he welcomes everyone, and that's super cool. Yeah.
I'm sometimes told I was too easy, so I tried to tighten up my teaching, and now it's too hard to.
I still find it so funny how Savani said he looks strict. I was like, no, he doesn't. He looks like a chill guy. Patience. So, what got you into entrepreneurship? What got you into the graduate program that you want to do?
Yeah, way back in Ghana, at the age of 19, I started my own business.
Oh, wow.
I'm naturally a curious person. Like, I watched this documentary, one guy who was just 17 years, starting doing social entrepreneurship in Kenya. And he was helping the rural community, especially women, widows who do not have access to fuel or electricity for cooking. He was using waste to produce fuel for them. And I got so inspired. I was like, he was just 17 and I was like 18 heading to 19. I was like, if he did this, I can do that in my country too and help people.
Wow.
So naturally, I was also drawn on, into social entrepreneurship when I was a teenager, and I followed the journey. I was attending conferences. In Ghana, you need to create opportunity for yourself. So where there was like conferences like the Climate African Change conferences and stuff, I was there, and that gave me a lot of exposure, networking, and I had the opportunity to secure some funding. But I mean, in my entrepreneurship journey, I've had some failures too, in terms of partnership that didn't go well, and also learned some good lessons that now I'm trying to start all over. And all the experiences I've had so far has shaped my mindset about entrepreneurship. And sometimes I watch documentary of successful entrepreneurs like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and so-called. I watched that documentary and realized that failure sometimes comes in the journey of entrepreneurship, but that shouldn't keep you at one place. You need to be resilient, determined, and come back on track.
Patience. Okay, and so amazing person, for anyone who's younger who wants to maybe start a business or who's just looking to, go into the journey of learning about these sort of things. Do you have any tips for them? Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah. So entrepreneurship, don't start entrepreneurship. People start entrepreneurship for a lot of different reasons.
Right.
People start entrepreneurship because of money. Some of them are just money conscious. But my advice to any young person who wants to start entrepreneurship is that identify a problem, create a solution for it, let it meet the people you want to serve or the target customers, create that unique solution for them, define a niche for yourself, and be patient to develop it. Don't be in a rush to make quick money unless you crash and fail. Be patient. Try and attend relevant conferences, network with the right people, speak with people who have a lot of experiences, your professors. If you're a student in OSU, Dr. Waters is I'm an amazing person with a lot of experience and information. He's very cool. You can meet with him and share your idea with him. He can guide you, he can coach you, talk to the right people, and also be somebody who is curious, always ready to learn, unlearn. there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of information on the website now, a lot of information on YouTube to surprise you that there's whatever you're thinking to start, somebody has already started it, but you can just pick some key information from it. So be someone who is curious, ready to learn. And once you get all this thing right, just start building it. And most importantly, it's your team members. A lot of people start entrepreneurship and they forget about the people they select to be their partners or to be on board. It will surprise you that you think you have the right team member just for the right team member to start you at the back. So, be somebody who is discerning. Try and don't rush into partnership. Try and read every document. Try and have the right people on board to build a successful business. Yeah.
Thank you, Patience. Thank you. And Dr. Waters, do you have any tips and suggestions beyond that? That's
No, I think Patience summed it up pretty nicely. But I think you have to start with your ecosystem, see what's needed, or what you predict for that, and then start your idea of the concept. People always think that because I have a cool idea, this is great.
yes, right.
But I would take my students in Syracuse to a patent museum full of cool ideas I never got anywhere else other than this patent museum. So, yeah.
Patience, you said Dr. Waters he's a cool guy. And when you said that, the first thing that came up to my mind was how he gave us some really great ramen.
Yeah.
He just gave us a bunch of ramen, and then, that's after I found out Dr. Waters is really into, all kinds of foods. We be sharing each other food videos all the time,
Yeah,
And,
I joined the ramen club.
You joined ramen
So
club, yeah.
I had boxes of ramen that I hadn't used, so I was very happy to have you guys.
Yeah. And the tuna sardine too was so good.
Yes, and also I got 10 fish. I joined a 10 fish club.
That's
You're
cool.
getting 10 fish.
I didn't know that. So. Yeah, and what are some memorable foods for you when you're traveling?
Well, what's most memorable is what made me sick.
Okay.
I was told when I was in China, eat no street food. And I was being really strict about that until I got to Shanghai and was sitting around, and this man was frying whole crabs, breaded, and I said, "Oh, that smells so good." So I said, I'm going to go get that. People said, "No, yeah." I said, "No, I'm going to get it." So I stood in line, and besides the crabs, there's also that, I'm in China. Many have never seen a tall, bald black man. So people will come to me and say, "Can we take a picture with you?" And I said yes once. And I turned around, there's a whole line of people. And they were giving me, and I was holding babies.
That's so.
So I'm in line to get this crab, and the people come to my mid-chest. They're all just looking up at me with wide eyes, and I get the crab, and I'm holding it up.
I just want my crab.
So I ate the crab. 4 hours later, I was sicker than a dog.
Oh.
And I stayed sick for like a month and a half.
Oh.
Hookworm.
Ugh.
Hookworm. So in almost every country I went to, my friends here would say, "No, be careful, because you come back with dysentery or worms." Everywhere I went, I got that. And in Nicaragua, we were sitting at a lakeside restaurant, and I ordered the fish. You think I would learn? I ordered the fish. So they brought out these beautifully
the seafood,
fried fish. So when I'm eating, I look up, and this man is driving his herd of cattle into the water.
Oh.
Sick. I sick from there.
Oh.
I was sick in Pakistan. I was sick. So I've tried to learn my lesson.
Don't worry, when you visit Ghana, you won't get that.
You'll see. When I was in Uganda, I said I'm gonna be one of the people. I'm a brother, one of the people. So we went to our restaurant in Uganda, and everyone's having this soup with this whole fish in it. I said, I'm gonna have that.
It was just the whole fish.
Whole fish. It was good. It was cooked and delicious.
Okay.
I was so sick for a month.
Oh.
I got back. Yeah.
The seafood, Dr. Waters.
Let's see when you visit Ghana, whether you can experience that.
Yeah, I was in China, and I was little. I was in Wuhan. I was in one of the markets, and then I I swear to God, I saw a guy driving with a cage with a snake in it. He was buying that. I was like, I've never even seen that before. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've seen in China, snakes in the bottles of whiskey
Right.
and all that.
And they drink that?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Do they have like a snake heart? I think.
Yeah, I think it's called. Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's everything. In Africa, we go to a market in Africa, and I remember going there, and I would see people with baboons or monkeys on the back of their motorcycles, taking it to market to be sold as meat. And when you get to market, all these different meats are hanging up on hooks around the meat stall.
Which country was that in Africa?
In Uganda.
Uganda. Oh, okay.
Hanging up around the meat stalls. And then above that, the vultures were on the roof all the way around. And of course, bushmeat is one of the causes of HIV and AIDS. The bushmeat. So that and but don't worry, I wasn't going to have it.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, what was the strangest, meat you've seen them sell? Like orangutans up there, monkeys up there.
Yeah, they were hanging on
monkeys up there.
Hooks.
That's
I wanted to teach. I was teaching my class about different business entrepreneurship things, and so when I was in Guadeloupe, one of my passions was voodoo. I wanted to know more and more. You go to a Catholic church, supposedly, but there were all these voodoo things built into the church. The saints, there were sacrifices at the different feet of the saints, statues. So I went to a market and I said, I'm going to find and obey a woman. I'm going to buy some voodoo dolls and stuff. So you go to the market and people have got the spices on. They're trying to get you to, come give me a look. And I said, where's your obey a woman? And they look at me shocked. And they would point over their shoulder and not look at me anymore. And sometimes they would spit. So in the middle of the market, there was just this clear, like a moat. And then here was the obey woman with a table with all this stuff on it. So I went over there and I said, I'm going to, he said, what are you looking for? What do you want? I said, well, I don't know. I said, what is that? A jar full of this black liquid. She said, to make your house smell good. And I thought, yeah, I bet. And he had a basket full of these dirty, undressed Barbie dolls. I said, what's that for? Oh, it's just toys.
Okay.
So I bought a voodoo doll. I bought some candles. There's a spray you can actually spray for money, for love.
Interesting.
All of that.
Really?
So when I had my bag from the Obey woman, I left, and people would not look at me. As I walked by, they would turn away from me, spit on the ground.
What country was that?
Guadeloupe.
Okay.
In the Caribbean.
Oh, I see.
Aphrodisiac for money. That's the first time.
Oh my
So
gosh.
when you said that to your house, what did you do with it?
Oh well, I still have a box of the voodoo dolls, and I'm afraid to burn the candles, and the spray is in that. I'm afraid to use any of it.
So you just wanted to have the experience.
Yeah, I put it around. I bought a voodoo banner from Baby Doc's voodoo room from Haiti. It's on my wall, But I'm afraid that I've seen the movies. I know what happens. You spray the thing, you burn the candle, and next thing you know, you're starring in some horror movie.
Yeah.
Dr. Waters would definitely survive in a horror movie. I know that. Well, looks like it's time. We did an hour of this, but Dr. Waters,
It was
thank
fun.
you so much.
It was so much
Yeah.
fun.
It was amazing.
Thank you.
Patience.
Thank you.
Thank you so
It was
much.
really fun.
Good
This
time.
once again, guys. This is the first episode of the OSU Debate Club. I would love to have you guys on again. We'll be interviewing a bunch of different professors about a bunch of different subjects, but